Hi guys, this one is called Still Life in Studio. It's number 110, and this is actually one of the earliest surviving photographs, and it is a collection of objects in the studio of the artist Daguerre, which the word daguerreotype comes from his name. And this one it's an important piece, mostly because it is one of the earliest surviving pieces, but it also is going to start the question or beg the question of, is photography an art? And I believe that it is. I believe photographers are are definitely very talented in what they do, and I feel like for someone who's not artistic like me, I can't draw, I can't paint. I'm not very creative, but one thing that I took a photography class in high school and in college, and with all the new iPhones and all the different filters, I really feel like photography is a way for me to be artistic. And so I think that there's many people who argue that you can't put photography on the same level of Michelangelo's sculpture or any of the paintings that we've been studying. But this is definitely a process that during this time period, you had to be very technically talented in order to use the right chemicals, the right mixture. Timing was really important. And so, although photography is a little bit easier today for us, it's also, we owe a great debt of thanks for those of us who love photography to the Daguerre and daguerreotype. So, this one, it looks a little creepy because it's a still life. We've talked about still lifes before. And just defined, a still life is an artistic arrangement of objects. And for this photograph, the collection of objects were currently in Daguerre's studio, in his art studio where he painted. And instead of using people, he often used plaster casts. So that's why those little cherub angel heads are on there. So it's basically he's just taking a picture of a section of his studio, and he was trying to capture light, shadow, and texture in the photograph that painters try to do all the time. So Daguerre was talented at painting, and so that's why he had such an eclectic collection of items to use. And also, he had to use items for this photograph because the exposure time, meaning the amount of time that the lens is open, at this for this piece was 8 minutes, and that's way too long for a person to be still. So, but that 8 minutes is a huge innovation because earlier surviving photographs, it was up to 8 hours. And so we're seeing this change happening, fairly quickly with the technology that by the time we get to the horse in motion, which is probably about 30 years difference, it's a lot quicker to get a photograph. So um, the before what we call the digital age, a photograph was an image recorded onto a light sensitive material that darkened when it was exposed to light, and the lights and darks on a film negative are opposites of the tones we see in real life. So it's like a mirror image. This negative can then be reversed again by a re-exposure to light and make it an infinite number of positive prints known as photographs. So once you have the film strip, if you guys have ever seen that, you can remake photographs as many times as you want, which is definitely different from our digital way of creating photographs, which is stored in the cloud or stored on your computers. I know I got married in 2003, and my wedding was still shot in film, and I still have the negatives for that. So if I could find a place that would reprint from my negatives, I haven't really thought about doing that. But if I did, I have that. That's where my backup is. Whereas when I had my son, who's a freshman, I put all of the, and my daughter as well, who's a seventh grader, I put all of their pictures were all digital, put them on the hard drive of a computer. That computer crashed, and there was no way for us to get those baby pictures back. So the only baby pictures we have of our children aren't on negatives like our wedding is. It's, usually from pictures other people have taken and sent to me, or was on my, flip phone or BlackBerry from the early 2000s. So enough about me. Let's keep talking about this piece. For those of you guys who haven't used a film camera, the mechanics of a camera are very similar to the human eye. Just as light enters the eye through the pupil, light enters the camera through a small opening. And then when photography was first invented, like I said before, many people didn't consider it an art form because it relied on a mechanical and chemical process, not any kind of, how would you put it? Not any kind of like creative process. You needed to rely on machines. So Daguerre didn't believe that because he was both. He was a painter, he was also a stage designer, and then worked as a chemist to invent methods of producing a fixed image by treating a polished metal plate with iodine and then placing this inside the camera, very similar to the camera obscura I talked about Vermeer. The camera's shutter will open to expose the plate and record an image on its surface. And like for this one, it was 8 minutes that the shutter was open. Today, they're open for partial seconds when you take pictures. And then the image was fixed or made permanent with table salt. Now, while this process created very detailed images, the positives of it, like when you make a positive reproduction, it couldn't easily be seen. And so that's why it looks grainy and smudged a little bit. But it's a significant change and advancement in photography that we're going to keep talking about in the future. Okay, so there's Still Life in Studio by Daguerre.